Hello and welcome to the video for Wednesday for Adobe After Effects. On Monday, we I had you guys watch this motion background tutorial and do that. Learn a bit about how to make some repeating animated background images, and then I tried that process myself with my own After Effects project I'm working on. And today I have some information for you. We've got a presentation due by Quentin. And I have graded all of the Project 2 files that I could find in the Google Drive. So your grades are in D2L. I know some people had promised me they were going to send the file or upload it, and that apparently hasn't happened yet because I couldn't find those files. So if you're in the process of finishing Project 2, please get that uploaded, and you'll have to send me an email to let me know that it's there so that I can give you a grade for it. Now I also have a comment here for people who are, if there's anyone who's struggling with the class, if you haven't finished Project 2 yet and you're either not aware of the fact that I created another project, which is Project 3, and or you don't think you're going to be able to get it done, that could have a big impact on your grade in the class. So please contact me as soon as possible if that's the case, so we can see what options are available to you. Okay, so today we have another tutorial. This one, convert Illustrator layers to shape layers. And in this tutorial, you're going to, it's very short, 2 minutes. It's going to show you how after you've imported an Adobe Illustrator file, you can convert that to a shape layer, which will give you more options of cool things you can do in After Effects. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to work on this sample project I have, and I'll go ahead and pick up where this tutorial left off. I'll go ahead and import an Illustrator file, convert it to a shape layer, and then do some special effects and things with it so you can see what some of your options are if you want to go that route with any of your projects. Okay, so let's go over here to the After Effects file. Okay, so over here in After Effects, here's where we left off. We had the little spinning peace symbols and the flashing hearts, and then this big peace symbol here changing color from one end of the animation to the next. Now, as you're aware, you can make as many compositions as you want, and these smaller comps which go into the big ones, these can be called nested compositions or mini comps, whatever you want. But if you want to experiment with some new techniques and you don't necessarily want to commit to having them in your main composition, you could just make a mini comp and try it out there. And then, of course, you always have the option to get rid of it or just add it to your main composition. So in my case, I'll just click here to create a new composition. I'll just use the default everything, but let me give this a little name so that I can know what it is. So I'll call it. I'm just going to call it Peace Heart. And for the background color, I guess a neutral gray, as boring as it is, will work. And then we'll go ahead and hit OK. We can always change that, come back here and change it if we want to. Okay, so here we are, Peace Heart. Now, the reason I named it that is because I do have an Illustrator file that I got off of the vector website Vecteezy that has a combination of a heart and a peace symbol in here. And so I'm thinking of using that, to do some kind of an animation. So what I can do is I can try and grab everything else. First, I'm going to have to, ungroup everything. And then let's see if there's a clipping mask on there. No, there's not. So let's see what's on here. There's probably a big yellow thing there that I can get rid of. I'm hoping, I'd like to use some of these creatures. Oops. I wonder if I can if this is all just one big thing. Oh, it's not. So, I ungrouped everything, so I kind of have to reselect everything manually. I'm hoping to get just this heart by itself. But see, there's all kinds of things going on there. There's that background and everything. So what might be easy for me to do is save this image as kind of a master image and then in a duplicate version of it, just delete everything except what I want, which is this heart right here. So, okay, here's Peace and Love 2. We'll save that in, I already have it as Peace and Love 2, so maybe I'll just save it as Peace and Love 3. Okay, AI, save. Okay, and then, so now what I can do is basically eliminate everything except for the heart, just so I have that as my only option in Illustrator to bring over to After Effects. So I'm going to click on the lasso tool, which will allow me to lasso a bunch of this junk out here and get basically everything except the heart. And it's going to take a few tries, and then there's crazy things like that plant, that leaf that's right next to it, which is going to be fun to get rid of. But, oops, apparently I got a little too close that time. But, get rid of all the low-hanging fruit first, all this kind of junk that we don't want. All right. Now, something just occurred to me. You guys may want to try this at home on your own, maybe even with this file potentially. So I can provide you with information on how to get this file. You can just go to the Vecteezy website and just type Peace and Love in here, of course. And there it is, right? And you may have to get a free account with these guys. This is free to download, but you may have to sign up for an account with them. But then you can download it and open it in Illustrator and do what I'm doing if you want to kind of follow along. Okay, so some of this stuff is obviously a little easier than other stuff. So, I basically want to get rid of everything that I can. Oops, boy, that was creepy. Let's get rid of all these little guys. I'm afraid what that's going to delete. Okay. So apparently, unfortunately, these flowers are somehow part of this black area back here, I think. Yeah, they're part of that, which is a real pain. These colors will be easy to get rid of, but that is kind of a pain. Now, I wonder if there's options. I wonder if this is just the red. Yeah, it is. I wonder if there's options to maybe just stroke this color and get rid of this. So let me see if that will work. So if I click on this and hold my Option key down, I can make a copy of it. And right now it's just black with no stroke. But if I click here and I give it a stroke and then I bump it up, there's no reason why that can't basically replace all that other junk that was there. So I can get it to where it's where it looks like it's about a similar thickness or whatever. And then the nice thing is, I can say adios muchacho to this junk. Well, I probably still have to use my lasso tool. Okay, right. All right, so now all I'm really missing here is this blue color. And to be quite honest, maybe I actually like it better without the blue color, because then I can just have it be transparent to whatever background color I want. Also, so let me just nuke this bad boy because I'm just no longer enamored with it, and work with this one instead. Now, also, my stroke on this is a little thicker than I think will look good visually. So let me take that down a few pegs. Excuse me. Okay, so now we have this. One of the things that I did in the last video, which I'm going to do again here, is to adjust the size of the artboard so that we don't have this giant file here that we're bringing into After Effects. So basically it's like cropping or whatever. Hate when that happens. It's hard to grab this sometimes. There we go. Okay, and then you just click back here, hold your space bar down to move that up, and now you've got this thing, right? What's nice about that is that's all just one shape, one object, and so it'd be pretty easy to manipulate inside of After Effects. So now we can save this as an Adobe Illustrator file on the desktop. So I guess Peace and Love 3 sounds good to me. And then we can go back to After Effects and we can import it. Here it is, Peace and Love 3. And let's see. I think this will all work. Create composition. No, we don't need that. Let's see what happens. Oh, layer options, merge layers. Okay, I guess I want them. I don't know. Let's see what happens here. See what comes in, and then we can go back and fix it. Oh, yeah, that worked. So apparently there was more than one layer in there. Maybe the case was that there were multiple layers that didn't have stuff on them that I deleted or something like that. But you can always go back and check. Yeah, interesting. So yeah, these other layers didn't have anything on them, so it asked me if I wanted to merge those. Yeah, that's always interesting, and it's nice to have that ability to merge layers or turn certain layers on and off, especially when you get over here to After Effects. Okay, so now I'm in my new composition, and I've got this After Effects object in here, or this, I'm sorry, Adobe Illustrator object here in After Effects. But of course, like we saw in the tutorial video, you only have a limited amount of options with what you can do with this when it is still Adobe Illustrator. You just basically have your transform options, right, which is somewhat limited. However, we can change this into a shape layer, right? So what we do is we select the layer and we go up to Layer, and then we choose Create, and create shapes from Vector Layer. And then, just like we saw in the video, it retains the Illustrator file, but it turns it off. And now it makes a new layer, which has the shape layer icon, that little star, and that's this, right? And we open that up, and now we get a contents section here, as well as a transform section, right? And this is where the repeater could be added, right? So if we add a repeater, you can see that the repeater will give us the option to have several of the piece hearts there on the stage. Now let's say that our goal with this was, we got inspired by the fact that we could use this repeater, and so we decided what we wanted to do was we want to kind of animate this heart kind of going across the stage, repeating across the stage, but maybe we want to make changes to it as it animates across the stage, like maybe want to change the opacity or the color or something like that. So we can open up the repeater here, and we can see the number of copies that are available. It starts out with 3, and then we can see what the offset is like, right? And that's how far away they are from each other. So if you click on this and you drag, it's going to move, all the copies over to the right. If you drag to the right, it's going to move them to the left if you drag to the left. And then, of course, you can set your 0 back there to take it back to the beginning, right? Now, for copies, we can change the number here to however many copies we want to make, right? And if we want to, we can also reposition this, in case we want to have multiple, like, a bunch of copies going across the screen, and then we want to have this just be in one part of the screen. Like for example, if we grab this and started it all out over here, then we could figure out how many copies it would take to get this all the way over to the edge here. Now along those lines, with however many it would take to get along to the edge, you could just keep increasing this number until you reach the edge. But you can also open this transform repeater, and you can go down here to where the position is and click on that and drag that over, and basically end up with amount of hearts that you want to use. Now one of the things I noticed, you could drag this really far so that they all just kind of come in like that. You could have them be kind of on top of each other. But I noticed it's kind of cool if you line them up, because the two sort of chambers of the heart at the top there are because this right one is the same shape, that's being used everywhere. You can line these up so that they all kind of line up on top of each other like that, which is kind of interesting. I also just noticed this when I set it up. That looks like something from the 70s right there, sort of a 3D heart, which might be kind of cool. So we can, you can do whatever you want. You can experiment with this kind of thing, but let's experiment with this. Let's experiment with having this many hearts on the stage right now. Now, I talked about the fact that I might want to have an opacity change happen, right? And I also might want to change the number of copies that exist at any given time. So like we're right here at the very beginning of the animation, and we haven't clicked any stopwatches yet, which means we haven't made any keyframes yet, right? But if I click right now next to copies and on the stopwatch, it inserts a keyframe. So now I'm committed to 7 copies right there. And then I can decide how long my animation is going to be. And then I can move the cursor down, or the playback head down, to that amount of time. And then I can make changes to things like the opacity and to how many copies are on the screen as well. So let's say that we want this, let's see, what's a good example? Well, let's say we want this to take 4 seconds, just for grins. So we can come here, we can highlight this number here, and we can just type in 400 and hit return. Wow. How long did I make this composition? It seems like it's 30 miles long. Oh my God. So what happened was it keeps the time of the last composition you made, and the last composition I made was over an hour long. So yeah, that's not going to happen. So let's make this thing 10 seconds long, okay, which would be like 1,000 is what you would plug in there. And then, oh, boom, suddenly this thing all gets much more reasonable, right? Okay, got to be careful of that stuff. Okay, so now at this point, at 4 seconds, we can create another keyframe, right? Or instead of creating a keyframe, we can just make a change here. Let's see what happens if we go to 0 copies there. Oh, well, 0 is not good. We want to have at least 1. Okay, right. So now it puts a keyframe there because, of course, there were 7 at the beginning, and then it goes down to 0, right? Now, we can also play with things like scale and rotation. I won't do those right now, but you could obviously make things get bigger or smaller. You could rotate them around. We did a little bit of that last time. But we also have this start opacity and this end opacity that we can play with, right? So we got to look at what's happening here. So what's happening is these are disappearing, right? Now maybe we want actually the opposite to happen. Maybe we want them to appear, which would mean that we could put the 1 here at the beginning, right? And then we could go down here to the to 4 seconds, and then we could change that to 7. Okay, and so what's happening is, we start with the 1, and then we get more, right? Now, what might be kind of cool is if it starts out completely transparent and then becomes completely opaque by the end. So we see these sort of ghost piece hearts coming in and then becoming real at the end, right? And what's nice about this is that you have a start opacity and an end opacity, and this makes it so you don't have to, create a start opacity here and then go all the way down and change the opacity at the end. They've actually broken that up into two little attributes here. So what that means is if at the beginning here you want to create a keyframe and you want to take this heart and really make it pretty invisible, but still barely visible, you can set this keyframe and then take this the opacity of it down to something like 20%, which will still make it visible. It'll be visible enough that you can see it as part of a chain of events, right? Now what's nice about this is you don't have to set the end opacity because it's already set to 100%. I mean, you can set it if you want to change it something other than 100%. But so what we've got right now is we've got one heart here and 7 at 4 seconds. But we said the start opacity is going to be 20% and the end opacity is going to be 100. So After Effects will automatically take each version of this and increase it in its opacity until we reach the 100%, right? And so then you have an animation. Let's actually play it. Whoa. Oh, I'm sorry. I had some kind of weird repeat thing going on there where it didn't let it get past that 1 second there. So let me see if I can fix that problem. Okay, so let's see what we can do about this. So it looks like it's only rendered it that far, which is probably part of the problem. Okay, but it looks like it's rendered it a little more now. So let me try again. This time I'm going to try with the play controls over here. So if I hit play, we see the hearts coming in, getting more visible as they come, right? And then, of course, it goes all the way to the end there. Now, if I wanted to, I could grab, let's see, I could grab this little guy up here and drag it down to here, and that would be, that would focus me on just this section that I'm looking at, right? Another option that I have is I can just change the length of this if I'm pretty sure that I want my composition to only be these 4 seconds. Instead of the 10 here, I can do 04. And then the nice thing about that is that is the whole composition now, which means that, if I click this, I'm always going to go to the end and then it's going to loop again. So I can just keep previewing it, right? Now, one of the things I'm noticing happening here is that, it's probably too visible here at the beginning because it has sort of a strange combination of things that happen at the end there. So what if I take this all the way down to 0 at the beginning, and then we see how that looks. Okay, well 0 obviously isn't great because it doesn't show up at all. So this is part of the experimental process here. So okay, let's try 10%. Okay, we can at least see that. And then maybe I take it back. Maybe it's not such a great idea to have 7 of these overlapping. Maybe it would be better just to have them, one here and then the next one right next to it, because the overlapping messes with the opacity that I'm trying to achieve. So let me see what happens if I mess with that a little bit. So let's see. We end up with 7 copies here, right? Or I guess 6.9, which is strange, but it's because we're not, it hasn't let us go quite all the way down to the end for some bizarre reason. If I click on that, yeah, it's still not quite getting to 7, which is bizarre. But anyway, so what if there were fewer copies? What if there were, let's try 4 copies? What does that look like? And then what about the position? What if we move these 4 so that they're all like this kind of a thing, right? Now, if that's the case, then the hearts are kind of going off the screen. So maybe they're a little too big in general. So maybe we can resize the scale of them all right here. So if we click on this scale button and we, these are linked together, and we click on one of them and we drag it down a little bit, down into the left a little bit. Let's see. Well, boy, that first one didn't change at all, did it? It's making each individual one 50. Okay, yeah, that's the, okay. So it's changing, it's taking that as a change that it wants me to do to each individual one. So maybe that's not where I go to change the scaling. Maybe I actually go down to the actual transform tools down here and just scale this here. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. So I just wanted it a little smaller. And maybe I want to move this first one over a little bit so that, when we get down to the end, all of them can be on the screen. So obviously that one's a little too small. So I can make it a little bigger. And of course I'm gonna have to move it over. So, I'm just going for a very specific effect here, and you guys can, do whatever you want. But well, what happened there? So let's see. 3, 4, yeah. So those 4 fit in. If I just went a little tiny bit more, I might be able to get them all to fit all the way across perfectly. Let's see. So just bumping it up just a little bit more. Was that the position I just moved? I think it was. Okay. A little bit like that. Oh, so close. All right. We'll take it down to, like, say 95 or something like that. See if the gods are smiling on us. Almost. Okay, 94 is probably the magic number. We're probably not going to get much better than 94 as far as, like, getting these guys to line up and go right across. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so once again, now we can play this and see what it looks like. Oh, that first one is it's just too light. You don't see it at all. So we'll stop that. Now that they're not overlapping each other, we can close this transform down here so we don't get confused. We can go up here to the start opacity, and start opacity. Oh, it's still 0. So I don't know what happened. I thought I had set it at 10% at one point, but let's see what happens now. Okay, let's see what we think about a 10% option with that at the beginning. Start opacity 10%. Okay, and then we just play that. So since you could, depending on the number of these that are showing up, you could just use very equal increments here. So for example, start opacity, we could change that to 25%. The reason being that there's 4 of them, so 25, 50, 75, and 100. And then theoretically you get, sort of a more regular kind of increase in the amount of opacity of each star or each heart, right? Okay, and then like I said, if I like if I like this effect, but let me pause it real quick. Stop that. Okay. I do like the effect, but now I'm kind of back to where I was wishing that I had more of these overlaying. I like where they end up. I just want there to be more, and I want so that they kind of layer on top of each other, right? So that means I have to do 2 things. I have to come all the way down here and increase the amount, and then I'm going to probably have to change the offset too. So wow, for some reason they're not showing up. Oh, it's probably because of the offset. They're going off the right side of the screen. So let's say we had 4, so let's say we do 12. And then let's say we change the offset. Maybe we'd have to, yeah, let's see. Got a negative number. Okay, having a little trouble seeing where all those are going to show up. Let's take that back to 0 like it was. Okay, so, all right, we got that. So let's see if we, oh, whoa, sorry, I accidentally clicked to go back to the original one of these, and so I'll click on piece heart here. Okay, so I realize now that it's not the offset I want to be playing with at this point, it's just the position, which, you know, I had adjusted this at such a high number now, so they're all spaced out. I do have 12 of them in there, but they're obviously going off the screen. So now I can click on this number and drag it to the left. And, you know, if I want to go for that overlapping effect, right? So we can drag this to the left. We'll try to get all, wow, that's a lot. 12 is a lot, right? Okay, and then, so those 12 exist all the way through, and then we can change the start opacity to maybe 10%, right? And then, you know, maybe what we want to do is we want to go back to having just the one at the beginning. Now, I've used this to just position them all, but maybe we just want to have the one copy at the beginning, and then down here we have all 12 of them, right? So now we've got something that looks a little cooler. It's a little more like that heart being, you know, coming into being, fully opaque down there at the end. Now I could change this opacity even more if I want, so that it becomes more of a you know, a wider range. Maybe take it down to as little as 5%. Oops, sorry, I was in the wrong place. Maybe take it down to as little as 5% here, right? And I could also, you know, I could go into certain places of this and change it, you know, kind of along the way too. Like I could come up here, like what is half of this? This is 4 seconds, right? So 2 seconds is here. If we look at the opacity here, if we click another keyframe, you know, what happens if we change the opacity to 50% there? Well, it just gets a lot darker, right? Like that. So, you know, maybe what we want to do is, you know, what was it before? It was like 7% or something like that. So it hasn't gone up very much from the 5% to there. But then from here, oh yeah, so this is the problem. Oh yeah, the end opacity here should be, you know, it's 100%, but you can see that that thing right there is actually much lighter than that. So it looks like it's doing kind of a weird thing here. I wonder if we can, I wonder if we change the start opacity to be like 100% all the way down here, if what happens there. So let me click that there. Okay, yeah, so I just realized that, you know, I don't want to change that start opacity at the end because these are separated for a reason. This gives you the starting number, and then that gives you the ending number. And, you know, I think I will take this back to 10 because I think I like that better, that vision of it at least being semi-visible. So the bottom line is, you know, just like the stuff that I did on Monday, it's just a matter of taste, right? And you can sit in here and play around with this all you want. What's important is to know the tools you have available to you. So, you know that you can You can change the scale, you can change the rotation, you can change the position, you can change the color. You have other effects that you can do over here in the effects and presets that you can change. But overall, you're basically getting this main idea here of a graphic which is scrolling across the screen and going from being transparent to fully opaque. And then once again, if you don't like that there are so many in here and it's kind of ruining the idea of the opacity fade in, because you can always see hearts instead of having them fade in, you can once again change the number of copies to a lower number, change your position so they're spread out further apart. Maybe there's a happy medium between what I had earlier, which was just the 4 hearts on there, and 12, which is a lot, and so it's up to you to experiment with things like this in your projects. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Let me go ahead and stop this. And okay, so let me go back to the class website. So once again, please continue to work on project 3. Basically, at this point, if you've been doing a chapter week in the book, then you're getting very close to the end. Remember that you don't have to do the very last chapter, which is the rendering chapter. So I'm not going to put any more, do chapter blanks in the book down here. I'll just write, finish the chapters in the book and upload those, and then work on project 3. And let me know if you have any questions. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do with this project. Okay, that's it for today. Have a nice weekend, and I will talk to you again on Monday.